All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Bobby Casey. Bobby, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Hey Kevin, thanks for having me. Been looking forward to this.
Yeah, same. And I'll tell you, I'm going to start off by giving a shout out to Riley Hanover, because Riley is one of your PR people, and Riley is the person that reached out to me and began telling me about you and stuff. I'll tell you, Bobby, they did a great job of talking you up. And by the time I got through what they were sharing, I got back to him. I'm like, heck yeah, I'd love to talk with Bobby and get to know him a little bit. And you and I got to have that conversation already. And so I've really been looking forward to this conversation today, because not only do you do something very unique, you've got one heck of a story too. And so I'll just start with a first simple question. What do you do and who do you serve, Bobby?
Got it. So, what do I do? Minute. I'll rewind just a little bit, but basically, I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. I've always had my own business. I was raised by an entrepreneurial family. Never really had the mindset to go out and get the good job and retire with the gold watch and all that kind of thing. That was never my mindset. So
Mhm.
I started my first, I call it real business, when I was 19. Didn't do very well. I started one when I was 20 that didn't do very well. 21, I started a business that did pretty well, that completely not in the field I'm in now. It was an installation company, but I had a lot of other things going on. I had the installation company. I had a real estate company. I had owned a restaurant for a while.
Wow.
And during that time, I had a lot of things going on in my mid to late 20s. I had a lot of assets, a lot of businesses going on, and I got kind of concerned about asset protection and tax optimization strategies. And
Okay.
so I hired somebody like me to help me protect my assets. And through the kind of consultative process with that guy, I was really fascinated with the whole process. And I enjoyed working with the guy that I hired. And at that time, pretty much all of my friends were entrepreneurs.
Okay.
I didn't really, basically, to be honest, it's still the case today. If you don't ride motorcycles or you own your own business, I pretty much don't know you. I just, that's my sphere of influences. My circle is small. Well,
Uh-huh.
circle is tight.
Mhm.
And so at the time, I had a bunch of entrepreneur friends, and I went to them and said, "Hey, you guys need to do something about your asset protection strategy and that sort of thing." So me and the guy that I hired worked together to help my friends. And so that kind of led me into doing consulting down this path for
Okay.
kind of what I do now. And I was doing that, let's say, informally since 2001, I
Okay.
guess,
So a
with
little
friends.
while, that's about 25 years now. So,
Yep. And then I sold the restaurant, I sold the real estate stuff. Then I sold the installation business around, I want to say 2008, maybe. I
okay.
think I sold that company, and kind of looking for things to do. I was already doing some of this consulting at that point, and I'd sold the business. I still had a little bit of real estate. I was doing some trading, and I thought, I really like this process of the consulting that I've been doing.
Hmm.
I like that it's puzzle solving. I really enjoyed the idea of working one on one with an entrepreneur and helping them solve a problem, solve this puzzle. And that puzzle being keeping as much of their money in their pocket as humanly possible. So, and that would be keeping it away from taxation, for one, and from also from predators like litigation. People
Okay.
sue you, and and you probably know, Kevin. I'm sure the more money you have, the bigger the bullseye is on your back.
Sure.
And so it just kind of became fun, and I enjoyed working one-on-one with entrepreneurs, whereas my previous business, I worked with a lot of big box retailers like Walmart and Home Depot and Dick's Sporting Goods, Sports Authority, places like that. And to be honest, I really hated them. I hated them as clients. I hated working with the people at those big multi-billion-dollar companies. I just did not like it.
Okay.
But I really liked working one-on-one with entrepreneurs.
So what's the big
No
differences
bureaucracy.
between those big companies and the entrepreneurs? Since you've worked with both, what are the differences, and why entrepreneur? Because I'm with you. I love working with entrepreneurs who I've never had worked with the bigger companies like you have. What's the differences, and what do you like better about entrepreneurs?
I'll give you a just kind of an example to kind of illustrate the point,
Okay.
if that'll help. So, our long time ago, our clients was Home Depot,
Okay.
and you know what? I don't do business with Home Depot anymore, so I'm happy to throw them under the bus. So, Home Depot is one of our big clients. What we did for Home Depot at that time is we went to the stores and we assembled their a lot of products, but the big category was barbecue grills.
Okay.
But we assembled a lot of things like home and garden stuff and patio furniture and that sort of thing. So if you ever walk into a Home Depot, especially like in the spring
Yep.
or summer, you'll see just like a sea of barbecue grills ready
Yes,
to
you
take
will.
home fully assembled. Okay.
Yes.
So our company is one of the companies that did that. And we did a lot of Home Depot stores. I mean, not initially. We ended up starting out with a little bit with Home Depot. Then we bought a company that was in that space. So we took a bigger chunk of that marketplace, and with that we grew. We were doing those installations or assemblies, if you want to call it that, for I don't know, a couple hundred Home Depot stores.
Okay.
In a few different markets. And so there was probably contractors that did that for Home Depot. There was probably about a dozen companies that did that in different markets around the country. And every year, Home Depot would ask all of us to come to their headquarters in Atlanta. We'd go meet, the owners of the business or the managers of the business, and we would take one of our technicians with us, one of our assembly technicians with us.
Okay.
And what they wanted us to do, we would spend a day there, and our assembly technician would assemble one of every barbecue grill in their,
inventory or whatever.
In their inventory, yeah. Every SKU that they had they were going to sell at Home Depot that year.
One of each one.
Yeah. So let's say there was 20 different barbecue grills. Our technician would assemble them, and the Home Depot guy would walk around. They had multiple Home Depot guys, and they would time them, each one. So let's say my guy took 20 minutes to do it, and the guy beside me, let's say his guy took 18 minutes, and the other guy did, let's say, 16 minutes or whatever. And so they would take all those times, and they would take the lowest one, and then they would reverse engineer. They would say, well, we think this job is worth X number of dollars per hour, so we're going to take that times 16 minutes, and that's exactly what we're going to pay you to do that. Okay. And so, number one, that doesn't account for a lot of different variables that happen when you get to the store. For example, you've got a guy that walks into the store and he goes and finds the manager and says, hey, I'm with this company. I'm here to do the barbecue grill assembly today. Where do I go? And the manager goes, oh, sorry, we weren't ready for you. Let me get our stockroom guys to put all the barbecues out for you in this, staging area. Give me 1 hour to get it out. Well, then my guy has to stand around for an hour doing absolutely nothing. They don't account for paying us for that time. They don't account for the cleanup period at the end because, we have to take all the packing material and put it into disposal. And that could take another hour at the end. Maybe we always have to get like some management team to come and sign off on on what we've done. Sometimes we got to wait 20, 30, 45 minutes for that guy to show up. They don't take into account any of that. It's literally the fastest guy in that line built barbecue grill A in 16 minutes. We're going to pay you X number of dollars for 16 minutes of time. Okay. And so what I didn't like about that, number one, they weren't flexible at all. They didn't factor in anything else. And then at the end, what they would do is they would say, here's the price we're willing to pay you. Take it or leave it. We didn't have a choice to bid on our pricing. It was, this is what we will pay you. So you can agree to do that in your 100 stores, 200 stores, 300 stores, however many your contract was. Or go away. We'll find somebody else. So it was very unreasonable to deal with them. And people talk about this kind of stuff all the time with like any of the big box chains like Walmart or Home Depot or whatever. We want to buy your product for X. They don't care that you make no money on it. They don't care your profitability. They don't care anything. All they say is, well, we think it's worth $5. We'll pay you $5. And I didn't like that about Home Depot because it was like there was no human factor in there. Yeah. It was a number on a spreadsheet, because that manager that was in charge of that process at Home Depot, he had to answer to, let's say, whatever, the department head of that department, who had to answer to the VP of that division, who had to answer to the CFO, and submit a spreadsheet. And there was no rational thought in a lot of that. So I didn't like that. Whereas dealing with entrepreneurs, you're dealing one-on-one with the hustler, the one that's out there trying to innovate, who's trying to make things happen, who's trying to improve his business, make better products. And like Home Depot, they're not there to innovate. All they care about is cost savings. They're not really innovating. I mean, I guess maybe in some way, like when it comes to things like supply chain or whatever, maybe they have some higher level innovation that they're dealing with, but it became so tedious to work with them. I just hated it. And every action was like that. Like one time we canceled a contract, or we were fired from the client, and we flew halfway across the country to go meet with them. We met with them. Literally in the first 1 minute, they slid the paper across the table saying effective, 90 days from now, your contract is ended. And I was so angry with that. I'm like, listen, fine. You want to fire us? Great. Do what you want to do. Why are you wasting my time and money to fly all the way to, halfway across the country for that? You could have emailed me this. You could have mailed me a certified letter with this. Like, you're wasting my time and energy to come out and do this sort of thing. So I just didn't like the way they did business. I just hated it.
That totally makes sense. And of course, now you totally get to just pick and choose who you work with now and who you serve. And
I do.
And if somebody's going to treat you like that, you get to be the one that's like, well, adios.
I have fired clients.
For sure.
I have definitely fired clients before. We actually, with Business Anywhere, we fired a client like 2 weeks ago. This lady, she, it's not a big client. I mean, she had a virtual mailbox with us, and her mail was not coming in on time. Well, we're the only one. We're just there to receive the mail. We don't have anything to do with mailing your stuff in, right? That's the Postal Service or FedEx or UPS or whoever. We receive the mail, we scan it, we upload it into your dashboard, and that's it. So this lady is complaining. She said, why is it taking so long to get my mail? We're like, we don't know why it's taking so long to get your mail. We just upload it when we get it. And we upload it within 24 hours of receiving it. She goes, no, you don't. We're like, we have no reason to not upload your mail when we get it. Why would we not? We don't like to watch it pile up. Like, we upload it as soon as it comes in. All of our team members, that's what they do every day. So we don't have like a pile where we're like, nah, we don't want to upload that person's mail. It comes in, we upload it. That's it. She got really angry with us, and then she's got really aggressive and started threatening our team and like using a lot of foul language. And so I said, "Yep, enough." I had my operations manager send her basically an email saying, "We're canceling your service. We're refunding your service, and we don't want you as a client. We don't appreciate the way you talk to us. We don't appreciate the way you talk to our team,
Yep.
and we have no interest in having you as a client anymore."
Yeah.
And as a small business owner, I can do that.
That's right.
And I'm going to do it individually. I'm not going to say in general, like, "Hey, we don't want these group of clients." But if you mistreat our team, you speak poorly to one of our team members, I don't want you as a client.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
you can't do that when let's say you have 6 clients and each one of them represents 7 figures of revenue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you have big box clients,
Yeah.
big corporate clients, and you have 6 clients and every one of them is a 7-figure stream of income, you can't go to one of those and say, "We don't want you as a client."
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it, because that means you have to lay off a bunch of people, because you
Yeah.
just shut down an entire category of work.
Yeah.
And that's when you're stuck going, biting your tongue, going, "Okay, keep your mouth shut," but
Yeah. Well, let's
yeah.
talk a little bit about what you do, because you have a couple different kinds of ways that you help your clients. So let's talk
Yep,
about,
yep,
what how you serve your clients.
yep. So going back to my history, I started this consulting process, and it kind of evolved. I was helping clients with asset protection planning, company structure, tax optimization strategies,
Okay.
privacy planning, that sort of thing. My clientele now is predominantly location independent entrepreneurs. It started a little bit different, mainly just entrepreneurs and investors, but then really because of my lifestyle. I mean, I'm I live in 3 different countries. I'm traveling a lot, living in different parts of the world all the time. And I became very involved in that, like, expat and that digital nomad type community.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of changed a little bit over the course of time. And I've been doing that for, 20-ish years,
Okay.
dealing with location independent entrepreneurs. And so it got to the point where I just became a specialist in people who have businesses outside of their home country, or they themselves live outside of their home country and
Okay.
need help with company structure, tax optimization, residency planning, that type of thing. So, like, an example would be, let's say you are a Canadian with a e-commerce business selling in North America, and you live in Thailand. So I would work with that client to help them optimize their business structure, their business taxes, their personal taxes, their residency, all these things. So helping that Canadian who lives in Thailand exit the Canadian tax system is like step 1. Helping them register their company in a let's call it tax-friendly jurisdiction that works with the nature of their business is number 2. And helping them optimize their taxes for the company they spend the most time in is kind of number 3 in that regard. So I do a lot of that. And over the years, I did a lot of that type of consulting for clients. And it turns out for most nationalities in most situations, again, I'm very clearly using the word most because everybody has a little bit different situation. There's a lot of nuances there. But in most situations, for most nationalities, if you're living outside of your home country, which is predominantly my niche of clients,
Okay.
A U.S. LLC is the best option for you for your company structure. And I got to the point over the years, I was referring so many clients to other partners. Hey, register your company here, register it here. And then we started doing it internally. And then it got to the point where we were renewing so many companies for clients. I just said, listen, I'm going to hire a developer to build me a software platform to automate all of this because this is too tedious. I don't want to keep doing this. So we hired a developer to build this platform to automate, like especially like company renewals and annual report filings and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I built it, I thought, you know what? Actually, that would probably be a pretty good standalone company by itself. And that's how Business Anywhere got started.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So, and you don't have to name names here or anything, although you could if you want, but you certainly don't have to. What's an example of a result, Bobby, that you have helped a client get that you're just incredibly proud of?
Man, I've got a lot.
I know there could be a whole lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, so
Yeah.
I mean, I've got thousands of clients. So okay, I could give you a couple. You tell me when to stop. But so I have one client. They are a couple, husband wife couple.
Okay.
The husband is American. The wife is Australian. They've got a coaching business. I'm not going to name names, but they've got a coaching business. They make 7 figures net seven figures a year, just over 7 figures. So like $1 million something, $1,100,000 or something like that.
Okay.
But let's just say $1 million just to make the math easy. So very high income, just 2 people, very lean business. They got a couple of coaches that work for them. They're all contractors. They got a few VAs, but they net out about $1 million a year. And they were living in the U.S. And when they contacted me, they wanted to move abroad. They were paying close. They were living in California, I should add.
Oh.
So they were paying close to 50% in taxes. So they were paying close to $500,000 a year in taxes. And they came to me through a referral, and they wanted to know if there was something they could do. They said they wanted to move abroad. They weren't sure exactly where they wanted to move to, but they liked several different places in Latin America. And well, I suggested a couple of different countries. And again, that's a difficult thing to say, like, because people come to me and say, where should I move to? And I can't just say, well, you should move here, because I could tell you Zimbabwe is the best place in the world to move to for tax optimization. But if you don't want to live in Zimbabwe, then, that's not a workable solution for you. So we went through a couple of different countries, and we realized they actually did enjoy spending time in Costa Rica.
Okay.
Let me rewind just a bit. They were living in California. Husband was American, wife's Australian, but she did have a green card.
Okay.
And so through the process, what we did is we revoked her green card. So by giving up that green card, she disconnected from the U.S. from a tax residency standpoint. So she gave up tax residency. She had already disconnected from Australia because she moved from Australia to the U.S. So she had disconnected tax residency from Australia. So she's completely free of Australia. She's completely free. Once she gave up her green card in the U.S., she was completely free of the U.S., giving up her green card. Her and her husband moved to Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a unique situation. They are what you call a residency-based territorial tax system, meaning if you don't earn your income from Costa Rican sources, you don't have to file or pay any tax in Costa Rica.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So if they live there, but their business is outside of Costa Rica, they pay no Costa Rican tax.
Okay.
Okay. So we restructured their business. We created, and they were in California. So they had a California, I believe they had an S Corp at the time. Okay. We dissolved that. We created a Wyoming LLC owned by an offshore holding company in the Caribbean in Anguilla. So basically all their profit or all their revenue, everything started flowing instead of California S Corp. Now it started flowing into the Wyoming LLC. The Wyoming LLC is a pass-through entity, so it flows through to the Anguilla holding company.
Okay.
Anguilla pays no taxes. There's no company tax on income earned outside of Anguilla. And so by doing that, they eliminated all of their U.S. company tax. So now $1 million in profit flowed through to the Anguilla company. And what we did is we paid the husband a salary of it's about $150,000 a year,
Okay.
which from the U.S. perspective, if he is living abroad, he qualifies for what's called the foreign earned income exclusion, where he can make approximately $150,000 tax-free. It's actually about 130 plus a housing allowance, but it works out to be approximately 150.
Okay.
And then we paid her a salary of $850,000 a year, but she no longer had tax residency anywhere. And her income came from an Anguilla company while living in Costa Rica, so she owed no Costa Rican tax. So they basically went from paying $500,000 a year in tax before we set them up to zero.
Wow.
So $500,000 tax savings just by moving and doing some restructuring. Now, of course, all that sounds lovely and everything, but it's not everyone. It doesn't work for everyone. I mean, not everyone's going to say, hey, let's move out of the country, or hey, I want to move to Costa Rica, or not everyone says, I've got an Australian wife, or, something like that. Like, it doesn't work for everyone. But every situation is different. We can usually find a solution that works for you based on the country where you're living. It's not always going to be zero tax. Like I have a client, another client who last year moved to Spain. American guy, his wife's from Venezuela, and they moved to Spain because Venezuela is a former Spanish colony. And Venezuelans have rights of citizenship in Spain. They need to live there for 2 years, but if they live there for 2 years, they can get a Spanish passport. And so Venezuelan passport is not the greatest passport in the world. So moving to Spain, within 2 years, she'll get a Spanish passport, which is an EU passport, which is much, much, much better than Venezuela. Anyway, they decided to move to Spain for personal reasons because of her. And he ended up getting a what's called a digital nomad visa there. And then he qualified for a particular tax program in Spain that allows him to not pay tax on the majority of his income because it's earned in another country that has a tax treaty with Spain. So he does pay some tax because his particular visa has a minimum income threshold to qualify for that visa. So he has to pay tax on that minimum income. Okay. But as long as he doesn't bring that money into Spain, then he doesn't have to pay tax on it there under the special tax regime he qualified for. He was paying probably about $250,000, $300,000 in tax. And that dropped down to, well, he still had to pay some tax there. So it dropped down to roughly $100,000 in tax. So he cut it about 60 some odd, maybe 70% tax bill. So every situation is a little bit different. You have to look at each individual situation. But you just have to get a little really creative.
Great examples right there. And so, I could get into asking you all kinds of questions about what you do because I'm just curious about it. But I also want to make sure we get to talk about some relationship stuff here too.
Sure. Yeah.
But I guarantee you, there's people listening to this right now that you've probably piqued their interest, and they're thinking like, "Dang, maybe it might be worthwhile to have a conversation with Bobby or somebody on his team or whatever." And for those of you, if you are in that spot listening to this, I'll make sure we cover you before we're done with this. At the end, I'll make sure Bobby gives some contact info and stuff. So
let me give you one more quick example. And I'm bringing this up because of what you just said.
Okay.
I got a recent client from back before Christmas, like just this past Christmas, like 2 months ago. Canadian woman who makes a lot of money. She makes, well, let me think, Canadian dollars. So probably about $600,000 or $700,000 US dollars a year. Okay. And she'd been living abroad for about 6 years. and in Canada, she's paying about 45% tax. But
Okay.
she'd been living abroad, but she didn't know what to do when she moved abroad. And so she just stayed. She kept her company registered in Canada. She stayed registered as a tax resident in Canada. And she just, let's say, pretended like she still lived in Canada. But she hadn't lived in Canada, I believe it was 6 years when we talked. And
Okay.
we started talking, and she did not realize she could exit the Canadian tax system. She didn't realize that was a possibility for her, because her accountant told her that if she moves abroad, she still has to file and pay tax in Canada. And I said, well, that's absolutely wrong. And that's pretty common. Like a lot of Canadian accountants, they tell their clients that. I don't know if it's because they just want to keep them hiring, keep them on board as clients, or if they just don't know any better on what to do. But anyway, we ended up restructuring a lot of her stuff. She does still have some Canadian source income because of one business that's physically in Canada.
Okay.
So she still does pay tax on that piece of the income, but everything else, she went from a 45% tax rate to zero.
Wow.
And
Wow.
the problem is for her. So you mentioned there's maybe people that have questions about this or whatever. And the problem, or the thing that I see very often, is people don't really know they have this option. And
Yeah.
so they stay registered in their home country, and they don't really make any changes because that's just what they know. They don't know
Yeah.
any better because that's just
Yeah.
what they know. And
Yeah.
that's what this woman did. And so she was paying, well, if you exclude out the US or the Canadian piece of that income, she was probably paying about 200,000 or more, 2 to 250,000 USD. I'm converting for USD in taxes to Canada every year. And so over a 6-year window, I mean, that's like
That's over a million,
that's
1.2 million, 1.3
1.3
million.
million or
Yeah.
something in
Yeah.
taxes she paid. And I told her, I said, look, you're not going to get that money back. So the best just to forget about it. But like, all I can say is sorry you didn't call me 6 years ago. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. You bring up such a big point there because, by doing this, I mean, we're talking about some, I mean, like in this case, 1.2, 1.3 million over 6 years, that could have been money in her pocket, And so, yeah.
not only that, well, there's the compounding factor, the compounding factor of wealth.
Yeah.
If she were compounding that tax free instead of after tax, it's a dramatic difference
Yeah.
over time.
Yeah. 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 Wow. Well, okay. So now that we've got some context set here and people understand a little bit about, who you are, Bobby, and what you're all about and who you serve and all that, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit and because I want to spend some time talking about relationships too. So
Sure.
have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm excited to hear your experience around this topic of relationships.
Sure. So that's happened a few times in my life. I don't really know if it was exactly like one person, but
Okay.
there were 3 different communities that I joined that made a major impact
Okay.
on my life. Major impact. And I'm going to I'll talk about one of them, which will
Okay.
be the third one I mentioned. The first one, in my 20s, I joined a group called Entrepreneurs Organization. It used to be called YEO, Young Entrepreneurs Organization.
Now they're not so young anymore, so they call them EO.
Yeah, they dropped the Y. Yeah. It's funny, actually, when I joined, it was called YEO, Young Entrepreneurs. And like a couple of years into it, they dropped the Y.
It was
The
probably you.
founder, the founder of EO is a guy named Vern Harnish. He wrote
Uh-huh.
a book called Rockefeller Habits and a couple others. You might even know Vern.
Yeah, I know Vern. Yeah.
Yeah, Vern's a good dude. Vern's a
Yes,
really good
Vern's a
dude.
good
But
dude.
I just think it's really funny because a couple of years after I joined YEO, he officially, or the team or whatever, officially changed the name to EO. And like I joined in my 20s, but now I'm in my 30s, and I thought, hey, am I
I'm not
like I
that
don't get,
old.
yeah, I'm not that old. Like I don't get to be young anymore. Like I thought it was kind of funny. So, but that made a big impact on my life just by spending time regularly with other successful, driven, you know, hustlers,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
People out there doing cool shit, basically. People out there making stuff happen, and it changed it opened my eyes up to a whole new realm of what was possible. Of like up until that point, I'd been in business and I had a few friends that were business owners and stuff like that. But when I joined EO in my late 20s, um, I saw people running like companies in the mid seven figures, mid eight figures,
Okay.
even a couple of guys with 9-figure businesses. And it just made me think like, wow, it just expanded my mindset and made me think bigger about things. And I was in the EO chapter in Charlotte, North Carolina. I had a really good forum group. There was about 10 of us in our forum group, and all of them were crushing it. And as far as I know, and I haven't talked to many of them in a long time, but I still keep up with them a little bit. And as far as I know, I think they're all still crushing it. They're all killing
That's awesome.
it. Through EO, I did another community through EO. I did what they called the Entrepreneurship Master's Program at
Okay.
MIT. At the time, it was called the Birthing of Giants program. So they only accepted 60 people each year. It was a 3-year program. So I got accepted into that. And so that community of 60 people, that was a big game changer for me because that was like the best of the best of EO.
Okay.
That were in that community. Like we had guys like with crazy, like I'm not going to name names, but let's say there was a guy in our group, Russian guy, who owned the largest food company in Russia.
Okay.
There was a girl in that group who at the time owned a small chain of jewelry stores, who is now a billionaire that I guarantee you have driven by her store sometime in the past 2 weeks.
Okay.
Like there's a guy that had a software company in there that is now an enterprise software platform used by basically every major bank in the U.S. Like it was a really high level group. That was a mind blowing experience for me, was to like be in a room with those guys. And when we finished our 3-year program, we continued to have like an alumni meetup that we did every year. And me and one other guy were the ones that organized that for several years, like probably 6 or 7 years. We continued to organize our kind of alumni meetup. So I'm still in touch with a bunch of those guys. We don't do our meetup anymore, but I'm still in touch with a bunch of those guys. And then lastly, I joined this other group. I just went to this meetup in Scottsdale, Arizona back in 2008 or 9.
Okay.
It was called Beer and Pancakes. So I went to this meetup back then. It was just a small group meetup of entrepreneurs from, a lot of them were in Scottsdale or kind of in that general area, Texas, or mostly the U.S. There was a few from outside the U.S. But I joined that community, and they kind of became my go-to community, let's call it my business knowledge-based community.
Okay.
And over the years, we kind of had like an ongoing conversation between the group. We had a meetup once or twice a year, and then a couple of different people organized that over the years. And then the last guy that organized it just decided in 2018 he didn't want to do it anymore. And so me and another guy named Steve, we took it over. So we started organizing it starting in 2019. So Steve and I have been running that beer and pancakes community since 2019.
Okay.
And that is my go-to knowledge base for my community now. And it's not only about business though. I mean, like last year, I went to 2 weddings. I went to a baby shower, all people in that group. I did Christmas with that group. I did Thanksgiving with that group. I did a road trip with somebody from that group last year. I think I visited 5 or 6 people in their houses last year in that group, in addition to our annual mastermind meetup.
Yeah.
So that is kind of my go-to. And that's probably my ongoing people that have inspired me. So I'm a big believer, and I know you know this term, maybe a lot of your audience does, but I'm a huge believer that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And you will either by default become the 5 people you spend the most time with, or you need to choose the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yes.
So if you want to improve, you need to up your 5 people.
That's right. That's right.
You need to up that group.
Yes.
Like,
you know, be hanging out with people who are doing stuff way bigger than you. And,
if you're ever the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
That's right. That's right.
Yes. I love being the dumbest person in the room.
Yes. Amen. Absolutely. Well, so for anybody that might be listening to this, and I kind of, like I alluded to before, going, man, Kev, some of the stuff that Bobby has shared has really got me thinking. And maybe they're already thinking about, you know, their own situation that maybe they want to talk with you about, or maybe they're thinking about changing their situation. They would just like to get some insight from you. What's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you and start interacting?
So our consulting business website, that's globalwealthprotection.com. That would be if you're basically, you need help with restructuring your business, or you need help with, you're thinking, hey, I want to live abroad. Or maybe you're already living abroad and you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize that I have to pay tax in my home country. You know, that would be the place to reach out to. We can help you get properly restructured and optimized with your business and your residency. My other business is businessanywhere.io. We're basically a startup tools platform.
Okay.
You've probably seen a lot of these out there. I don't want to name names, but you've seen a lot of these out there. But basically, our platform, we're kind of a one-stop shop for company formation, registered agent service, setting up a virtual mailbox for your business, getting your tax ID filed, opening bank accounts, registering trademarks, doing all your company compliance with the Secretary of State. In some situations, your tax filings, your tax reporting, your bookkeeping. Basically, we do everything for startups. We cater to kind of, well, let me say, anybody who needs to register an LLC or corporation, we can handle it. I mean, that's what our platform does. We've created a really super simple, streamlined platform. It takes you like 5 minutes to register your business. But we kind of target our audience towards location independent entrepreneurs on one side, and then real estate investors on the other.
Okay.
Because we do a lot of things for real estate investors, like automating their filings and their annual reports. So real estate investors very often have to, you know, if you have multiple properties, you probably have multiple LLCs. And if you got 10 or 15 or 20 or more LLCs, keeping up with your annual compliance and annual report filings and everything on all those gets to be really tedious. And our platform fully automates all of that for you. That's actually kind of the motivation for building the platform.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And I'll make sure we include that with the show notes and stuff. Is there any last thing that you would like to share, Bobby, before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, I would just say if you are new on your entrepreneurial journey, um, you only fail when you quit.
That's
So
right. That's
keep it
right.
up, keep driving, keep persisting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Persistence wins. You know the 21-year old that sold his company for $2 billion makes great front page news. But that 21-year-old that sold his company for $2 billion is like one out of 10 million entrepreneurs out there. Don't get discouraged if it takes you, a few extra years to build your business up successfully.
Mhm.
If you're seeing traction, just keep digging, keep digging, keep digging, and get involved in some community that is going to inspire you and educate you, and where you can participate and be of value to that community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bobby, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. And I'm excited to get this out there and share it with folks. So thanks so much, man.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. I appreciate it.
You bet.